Here's the demonstration purchase order we've been using for the other modules, in which Williams Exporting is the supplier and the buyer is Burns Engineering in the UK. Note there are three sections to the purchase order: the header section up here, and then it's followed by the part numbers, and that's for that particular supplier. And down below here we show the line items for that particular purchase order. There are several drop downs that could be illustrated. For instance, the Incoterms are shown here. The shipment mode is possibly that drop down. Currency mode or currency type would be shown here. It's usually obviously US dollars. Down over here you can have export license type if it's something other than NLR, no license required, which is commonly used. The foreign port is shown here, complete with the Schedule K number. If we wanted to change the mode of shipment from ocean container to, say, a combination mode where one line item goes differently than ocean, we could change it to that up there. And then down below, let's say we want to change line item 2 to air, is how simple it could be shown here. Note how that carries over to the warehouse receipt, that the warehouse sees that, well, this particular item is going by ocean, whereas these other two line items are supposed to go by air. These other two line items go by ocean. Further, if you look up here at the right hand corner, there are reports, queries, notes, and subforms. In the notes we could have purchase order notes. In this case it's reminding the warehouse to double check that each skid has the correct country of origin. That same note, because it pertains to line item 3, could be put down here in the line item 3 comment. Note how this information carries over to the warehouse receipt. Same information, the PO notes there, and the comments still show up there. If we were to change this to a different supplier, for instance, we have another sort of dummy supplier in our system called US Exporter. They only have one part number assigned to them here. Or if we change it to a supplier that has quite a few, notice how it changes their over 10,000 part numbers in the system for this particular supplier. Changing it back to the original purchase order of ocean, and line item 2 was ocean, show how another part number could be added, and we'll call this part number 4, and we want to ship this one by air, and let's say we have it supposed to be ready on that date. It's only going to be 5 of these items, but these are pricier items. They're that much. Now note up here, there's a PO extended sum. See how that changes by adding that other part number, that other line item. And against what the purchase order says, this is a double check to see that the two are in sync. Well, they're not in sync in this case because we've added somebody new. So let's delete this because it's really not part of that purchase order. And we're doing that. And notice that the PO's extended sum goes back to what it was originally. Notice under the line items here, there's these little pluses here. Whenever that comes up, that shows that there's been cargo received against what was ordered for that particular line item. And if you want to see further detail, you can see the warehouse receiving report is there, which is an extract from the warehouse receipt input. Or you can go into this. It shows how the cargo is shipped out of the country and when it's due to arrive at destination. The tabs in the upper right corner show further information. There's some reports that can be derived. This is a handy report that can be given to the supplier to summarize that HCB has received the purchase order information, and this has been put into our system. It summarizes whether a letter of credit's involved, packing, what the shipment mode would be based on that to some degree, what the Incoterms are, and down below we show the 3 line items with the Schedule B numbers that will be used for the export classification. A summary of the purchase order status can be brought up by inputting the purchase order number, and this yields a report that gives a summary of what was ordered, how it was received. It could have actually been received 400 items of line item 1 were ordered, but 200 could be shipped at one point, 200 at another point, which would be shown here. And then it shows what shipment that the cargo for that particular line item went out of the country. There are sub-forms to this main PO import form. For instance, we have a PO production overview. In this case, there's an activity of following up if Burns has approved drawings, can't ship until approved. This can be sent as an email attachment to the supplier or to the consignee. We put in here the activity number over here, 3712, and that's easier, a nice summary of what's being asked, and easier than having to rekey all that information. If the shipment is under a letter of credit, which it is in this case, we can go to a letter of credit draft here, information, and if a forwarder certificate of receipt has to be issued, HCB could be the issuing one, and there could be a statement saying received in apparent order. This information then carries over when the forwarder certificate of receipt is issued. That wouldn't be until the cargo actually is received in clean order. There's also a tie-in to the other parts of the server information that the forwarder would have. So, for instance, we have a PO correspondence, and we have when the new purchase order was received, when changes were made, that sort of thing can all be documented here. So if you go into this link here, you can see that there's a purchase order information of, and then there would be an attachment of the actual purchase order to that particular correspondence. By selecting the status response, get an idea of what's going on with each purchase order from an inland standpoint. Since all 3 of these have already been delivered, that information shown down here below. If anything was still pending, it would be shown up here. This completes our discussion of the purchase order input format into the PO Wizard.